Hi, I'm Janet Smith, and this video is just to quickly give you some tips on how to handle and manage all the tiles when you get far along in a program like Barden and you have a huge tile board and you're trying to work with a student online. So I've opened to the final lesson in level 10, so the tile board that you see showing has every single tile in it. So I figured that was a good way to show you how you can manage a lot of tiles by opening that one up. So what I do first of all, this is opened in the Whizzimo app or downloaded Whizzimo as opposed to the browser. So the benefit of that is you can see there's no browser tabs and no browser window at the top. That gives you a little more room. You do have the option to, when you click on view, you can zoom in or zoom out. So I could make more of the tiles visible. It just depends on how small I'm willing to let them get. And I think that's a personal preference to some extent. So that's something you'll have to experiment with. What I like to do myself is to size it so that I have roughly 1/3 of the board in view in each section. So in this section, which is the far left, if you're looking at this bar that you can move sideways, I can see all my consonant tiles, I can see all the vowels and the vowel R's and the vowel teams, and most of the units. I also, when I have a new teaching at this level, I personally like to resize it. And if you click on this resize button, you have the little resize block thing that you can pull up or down. I like to resize it so it's just under the last row of vowels, which are the vowel R row here. And I'll show you why in just a minute. So that still gives me the white space, the work area down here, because you have to pull the tiles down into the work area if you want them to stay there. So you need to have some work area, and also for the teaching, they need to have the new teachings that come up when you hit the arrows. Those tiles need to have room to be there as well. So that leaves me work area, and then I have everything in view, and most of it I can access without scrolling, but on the units there are a few rows that if I needed them I would have to scroll down for. All right, so the next section is I can move over, and then this section is all of my prefixes and suffixes. So when a student is spelling a word and they need a prefix or suffix, typically I move it over for them and then they go ahead and get what they need. If they really have trouble dragging tiles down and get very frustrated, I'll ask them to point to one and then I'll pull it down. Or if we're in the new teaching and they say go ahead and add ED to this word, I'll pull the ED down because they've already been told which tile it is. They aren't supposed to find it per se, and so I'll save the time by pulling it down and say show me how you would add the suffix to that. And then when it's time to use the Latin roots and prefixes, the Latin combining forms and the Latin roots, they're right underneath that. So I would scroll down and then the student can find what they need, or again, if they already know what they need and they just need to get it, I might pull it down for them or let them point. And then for the last lessons with the Greek combining forms, that's the final end of the board. So again, what I'm doing is I'm manipulating going to the front, the middle, or the back, depending on what's needed. If the Latin roots or chameleon prefixes are needed, we go down like that, and I will do the moving again to save a lot of time, unless I have an older student who's very good at it and can zip around just as fast as I can. And so let me just demonstrate how that works. I'm going to get rid of that new teaching word, and let's just pretend we're spelling words right now. And the first word is excessive. All right, so I know my student needs to go and get a prefix here, EX. And it would actually be down in the Latin one, so EX. And then he needs the root ses. So I've moved it over, and then either my student can point to it and I drag it down, and then I just go back over to the units for the IV and pull that down. And that saves time by doing that in the thirds and then being able to go from section to section pretty easily. It is a lot less frustrating. So let me show you with one more word. If he had to spell the word differing, so I'm going to go ahead down to my chameleon prefixes again and put diff, and then fur, and then I just go up to get ing. So as a teacher, I have a good sense of where I have to go for each thing. If I need to get just one of the regular letters, I go to this first part. For vowels, consonants, or units. Prefix, suffixes, Latin roots, or chameleon prefixes go to the middle and straight up and down. Or finally, when you get to those final lessons with the Greek combining forms, you just go to the end to use those. So by dividing it in thirds like that, and me being the one to move from section to section and minimizing the amount of scrolling, or I would do the scrolling and then the student can either point to or select the piece after I've gotten to the location we need. All those things help when you're managing a lot of tiles when you get farther along in the lessons that you have.